Welcome to Real Voices of Happy Valley with Viv and Dave Boardman. This is our podcast. This episode features Jill, who's had a long involvement with sort of nature, peace, protest, saving the planet. What an interesting woman you found there, Viv.
Yes, she is. She asked me not to use her surname, so I haven't. She's just Jill. She's had a very full life in the valley, from going from her beginnings here in the early 80s to a lot of travelling in between, but basically always come back here.
Yeah, she'd been to Palestine and Berlin and various other places.
Yes, all over the place. And she arrived in the early 80s, as I say, and describes herself now and then as an out dyke. So she was a lesbian who came with other lesbians and settled in Cornholme, and I'll let her say the rest. Good morning, Jill.
Hi, Viv.
So you were one of the kind of pioneers, really, of people coming to the valley for a better life, for a different life. What brought you here and when?
What brought me here was no idea of there being any kind of community here, but just being desperate to get out of the very overloaded situation I was in, living in a lesbian gay housing co-op in Hackney, running an adventure playground community centre renovation, and doing a women's studies MA.
Well, that sounds perfect and idyllic. Why would you want to leave that?
I'd just come back. I'd been in Palestine and then living in Berlin. And so I suppose relatively my life was quite frantic then, but I just suddenly realised this was not what I wanted. I wanted to be somewhere out in a little quiet country place, getting on with a more natural way of living.
Yeah.
And I went with one friend to South Wales and with another up to North Wales, and then with another up to Northern England. And we found ourselves, just rough camping, found we were on the edge of Burnley, having visited Horton Women's Holiday Centre, which was just setting up then, and came down Cliviger Gorge, and fell instantly in love. And I still think it's the most wonderful place, and very precious, and Eagle Crag, and I just knew that I'd found where's my home.
That's fantastic, a kind of eureka moment. This is it. This is where I want to be.
Yeah, really. And we came down into Cornholme, saw a house for sale, and I said, that'll do. I was actually looking for somewhere to put a caravan, and we did consider Mytham Steeps, but I was a bit daunted by getting a caravan up there.
Clues in the name, isn't it? Yeah.
So we ended up, cutting long story short as usual, just living next to quite hippie neighbours.
So when you say we, who do you mean? How many of you?
Right, this was with my then lesbian partner. I was looking just for me, but she decided to come up and settle as well. And so we just somehow from a distance bought this house, moved up on the Saturday, and on the Sunday morning walked out the door, thought, shall we go left or right to get a paper? Fortunately, we chose left, found the next paper shop open to be in Todd, where it was the headlines were about the Polish guy being found dead on top of a coal heap
Oh.
in Todd Station.
Yeah.
And this was the time of the police officer, just coincided with all his sightings in Crag Vale.
Yeah.
And Sarrel Hillside, which was we were right by, having all its interesting echoings and just all these cosmic happenings.
Yeah, it's a hot spot, apparently, part of Todd. Yeah.
So, yeah, got a work in Todd, rather public work, still doing this, commuting down to Kent, finishing my women's studies dissertation on patriarchy and sexuality and stuff, and gave birth. And
lovely.
Just magically like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Which seemed to interest a lot of people, but it was pretty well never any animosity, just curiosity in a really friendly, accepting sort of way.
Yeah.
So it felt like a good place to be.
And you were how old at this stage? Were you in your 20s or 30s?
No, I'd just gone 30, I think. 32 when I had my son.
Yeah.
Followed by a daughter, both of whom we're all still in contact as a family, but spread across the world these days. So sadly, grandchildren are much beloved, but little in evidence.
Yeah.
So still very important.
But we have things that we didn't have then, which is the internet and, able to zap photos over to people. And it doesn't make up for, physical contact, but at least we've got that, haven't we? Yeah.
Yeah.
So to get back to your kind of discovery of Calder Valley, you set up home. Were you still with your partner then? Your female partner and your children?
Yeah. We moved on to the tops, and in a big place which instantly became the centre of international media interest, because there was a witch wanted to move into the chapel.
Oh, really?
A witch, a real out witch, posing with boa constrictor and skull and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Margassa, I think she was called. I don't think she's still around. So it was being very much aware of nature, and my mum, particularly being from Lancashire, she'd always been really interested. I remember going with her when I was about 4 to a witchcraft museum when we were on holiday somewhere, and just sensing that she was really caught by it and I was really caught by it.
Yeah.
And so by the age of 7, on my 7th birthday, I came to the realisation that I must be a witch too. And without any of the, knowing about witches' history really, just that it was somebody that loved nature, loved growing plants and being out in nature and just leading a simple life, and being part of community. And it has, I've made a point of being out about it simply in terms of reclaiming it.
Yeah.
I did quite a bit of research on witches because I was doing this work.
Pendle witches were the thing in Lancashire, weren't they? And the dreadful, witch hunts that went on. And I think it's a fear of women that's behind it, and of our being in tune with nature and with the moon and all of that. I think what people don't understand, they sometimes vilify. But yeah, it's nice that you felt that.
I don't sort of, I've tried out all kinds of, bits of covens and the different gatherings. And I think witch is very different from pagans.
Right.
And for me, I'm just being me. I'm not a member of a coven or anything weird. I don't do weird things. I go camping, I go walking, I do lots of gardening, and you know, learning healing herbs is just part of, I think, what women traditionally have done. They do, you know, it's the sort of nature nurture balance of trying to make the most of what we've got naturally, and just cut out all the artificial and chemical solutions that we have in systems that still it seems to me to be very effectively patriarchal.
Yeah, because you can't deny, or none of us, I don't think, can deny the effectiveness of some medical breakthroughs like the polio vaccine and smallpox, which was eradicated, and antibiotics generally.
Oh, yeah.
But
absolutely.
I don't think we should throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's balance, as in all things. It's balance.
As in nature.
And people, we do get indoctrinated by social values, and it's all nowadays about material wealth and power over. And for me, it's the power within that's more important.
And it's like with one of the big things in witchcraft was midwifery, wasn't it? That it was women who would help other women have babies.
Yeah.
And I remember when I had my first baby, I was in hospital, and there was a doctor and a nurse came round, and the doctor said, not to me, but to the nurse, "This baby's jaundiced." And the nurse said, "Doctor, I think you'll find she's lying next to a yellow curtain and the sun's shining." And she pulled the curtain aside, and magically, no jaundiced baby. But, you know, it made me think then, you know, for all the, you know, women have a more innate sense of what's happening. And doctors with their training will know yellow skin means jaundice, doesn't necessarily.
No, you're just reminding me that my baby, I was told he was jaundiced, and I was told his head was too big, and this, that, and the other. It's you know, interesting that I felt that I was being fitted into a system that wasn't you know, natural. And things like vaccinations. It's not that I'm for or against them, but they can be a useful part of medicine, but we can't, you know, we can't be dependent on medical interventions. You know, it has to be being more aware of our own whole person health.
But we lose confidence in that, don't we?
Yeah.
As a society, I mean, you know, the more medicine advances and the more we think, oh, that's clever, you know, I don't know how they would do that, the less confidence we have in our own abilities. So by now, we're in the early to mid 1980s.
Yeah.
You've got your children and you're living on the tops, but all round there was lots of things going on, weren't there, with CND, the peace movement. How did you have that as part of your life?
I can't quite remember how it came about, but a really important group at that time for me was Pennine Peace Women, which included random women, I suppose, you know, having some kind of education background, you know, that we got together. It was very, very different and widespread group, but very powerful in that how we acted as a group. We went down to Greenham. My partner and I took it in turns.
That was the Greenham Common Peace Camp.
Yes,
which was all women, right. Wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Trying to stop cruise missiles.
Really important because it was the first time that really publicly, it seemed to me, women had been able to take action independently, and it mattered that it was just women, because it was a new exploration of how to live together, how to act together, how to make change together, how to build. I can't remember what they're called. The little
benders they were called, weren't they? Yeah,
benders,
those tents made out of bin bags and stuff. Yeah.
First time we went to Greenham, it was carrying on from a very early green gathering, and where there were no toilets, and there was a bit of a public health issue. By the time we got to Greenham, my 6-month-old baby was not at all well. Fortunately, there were nurses there to take him to hospital. It's got high temperature.
Yeah.
And we'd picked up some nasty stomach bug. Went crawling home to parents, saying, please look after us.
Yeah.
But so from then on, really, it was, it wasn't a great place to have babies. People did have babies there, and they were really well supported, and there was so much local good energy and so much growing strength between women, gaining confidence in working independently together, having huge rows about things. And that was something I found quite important, that it was okay to be emotional. You didn't just have to be logical and rational and calm and organised and structured.
And it was okay to disagree, which is great. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. We had vigilantes come round the first time we were there, when we got ill, and they'd raided and trashed our tent. And that we went to the fire, and the women were so supportive. And then vigilantes came along and threw maggots and blue dye over us.
Oh,
and
God.
It just got worse with the evictions.
Was this because women had the nerve to gather together?
Seemed to be.
Say, please stop trying to bomb us.
Yeah. And it was somehow this. We did have a lot of men at first wanting to join in, but they did get the message that this was something women were having to do themselves. And it was such a powerful experience. It wasn't about being separatist or rejecting men. It was just about finding new ways to communicate and share. And traditionally, women have always grouped together. Men have been the hunters and women have been the gatherers, traditionally. And in a way, we were reliving this. Stuff like veganism came out from this, but the warmth of as well as the anger that women felt able to express was quite transformative. It felt like maybe we did have some power after all. Maybe we didn't. Where have we got to?
But nobody, I know. That could be a whole sort of thesis, couldn't it? How did we get to where we are now? But and it's, you're right. I only went to Greenham Common once on a kind of day trip. It sounds very shallow, but I wanted to show support, and I went with other women and their children, and we just went for the day, and it, I'm glad I did. I like to be like you and have stayed longer and things, but as long as you're showing some support. And
absolutely. There was no judgment. That was one of the issues where that bit of competition coming into things, but cooperation was the real thing. Everyone was welcome, so long as they came with goodwill. Everybody was happy to be challenged and look at things in different ways.
I can remember when it was on the news, because it did make the news quite big. It's amazing that it's not still talked about, and it should be. But I can remember the the journalists being outraged that there was no spokesperson. And they said, no, we don't have a hierarchy. You can talk to any of us, and that was a really new thing,
Yes.
And it's...
where did it go to?
Yeah, it would be nice. Well, maybe we should, it's time it sprung up again.
And again, Fairford Peace was really important. We set up Fairford Peace Camp and campaigned against the cruise missiles and stuff coming in. This was the start of the Iraq invasion. And we did it all, following natural systems. We did it, organised the camp by the moon phases, and Quakers got involved and were really supportive. And that started me on my spiritual journey, then went in that direction, and I became more actively involved as a Quaker. But that was one part. I was also, I was teaching, doing a lot of work and single parenting by then, and it was juggling, constantly exhausting. And of course I still really valued travelling, living in different places, and fortunately had good parenting support, so I was able to do that to some extent, but missed the valley. I did miss the valley, and eventually, I think it was about 2004, I came back, still working, still parenting, still travelling.
And now here you are, you've come full circle, almost, well, since the 80s, and you're back in Hebden Bridge now, living not far from me. And I know we went together to a fracking demo.
Oh, yes.
Well, anti-fracking.
Yes, thank you for reminding me of that.
Yeah.
That was such a special time.
In Preston.
I was caring for my mum, end of life, really hard stuff, sorting out, their house and affairs and all that, and feeling absolutely exhausted when I came back here. But one thing I really wanted to do was, I just felt really wrong that they're exploding the earth.
Yeah.
For what? And what damage are they doing? And I'd heard about the nanas, Lancashire nanas, that had learnt from people in Australia who had succeeded very well in this mission. They made a film that came over, stayed with me, and so it wasn't separatist at all, but it was women working together, and from the bottom up, local women being just so inventive and ingenious.
Yeah.
And the police were so heavy on us. The police sexism was terrible, grabbing women's breasts and being really violent, and lots of arrests, lots of difficult times, but our solidarity and the fun we had together. I got arrested for canning round some police officers with Tina Rothery. She won't mind me saying that. And they just, ridiculous things, like I'd got really long hair then with braids in, and they were, in the police station. They wanted me to take the braids out my hair. I said, I can't, they're like dreads, they're in.
Yeah.
And I got seized from behind by 3 policewomen, dragged my hair out, tried to drag these threads out, and put me on suicide watch in the cell in case I somehow magically cut and tied together these
is that why they wanted
bits.
Right.
And so it just meant that I couldn't, they woke me up, but I couldn't sleep. I was just stuck in there with nothing to do for hours. But like so often, it was just frightening tactics. They hadn't got anything to charge us with. And that happened so much there.
But again, we're threatened by the thought of women getting together and being strong.
And the police, so it were, very, very rare to have a woman police officer there, it seemed to be. And they had the blue bibs that, were constantly trying to get information out of us. We didn't have secrets.
We're just here trying to stop people dynamiting the earth.
But I have to say, it alarms me, the stuff that's going on now with the police, the sexism and the horrific violence and abuse of their position that's been up recently feels like the tip of the iceberg of patriarchy reasserting itself, uppity women have always, just like the suffragettes, just like the witches being burnt. Interestingly, I just was at a witches' revival gathering in Lancaster, where there were just masses of, I have to say, predominantly young, white, able-bodied, educated women, sadly, still all those issues to deal with. But just getting so much from gathering together as women and understanding what's happened to witches in the past and how we must never let this happen again, which is why it's important to me to reclaim the term. I'm nothing peculiar. I just love plants. I just love being outdoors, and I just love this valley.
Well, Jill, it's been lovely talking to you, and keep smashing that patriarchy and keep planting your plants. And here's all power to you. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Viv.